Good evening, and welcome to Movie Phone. Wait, wrong. I know, I'm... Good evening, and welcome to Movie Phone. Wait, ooh. I know, I'm... Good evening, and welcome to Movie Phone. Wait, ooh. I know, I'm... Good evening, and welcome to Movie Phone.
We're getting a weird and interesting echo.
Yeah, I'm...
Good evening, and welcome to Movie Phone. We're getting a weird and interesting echo.
Yeah, I'm...
Okay.
I've turned off every... Is it on my side or your side? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so can you hear me now? Somebody post a comment and say they can hear me. This is my first time using StreamYard, so bear with me as I try and figure this out. Welcome. Welcome. Oh, good. Thank you. Somebody has acknowledged my existence. All right. Perfect. Welcome to The Herald Speaks, episode, however many episodes. I have no idea how many episodes I've done this so far, but this is the first one using advanced technology and not just me, pontificating from my cell phone. Today's guest with me is the one, the only, Cormac Mór, Order of the Pelican. He is the Beare Extraordinary Herald, because he's cool like that. And he's been paying attention to the stuff that's been going on the last couple of weeks a heck of a lot more than I have, because I've been dealing with life. Hi, say hi, Cormac.
Hi, Cormac. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for trusting me to be your first guest. I'm very excited to be here.
All right, so let's begin, shall we? All right, so before we get started, as you can see, we have a disclaimer rolling around here. These are the opinions of myself and Cormac. 10, 20, 12. They are not the opinions or anything having to do with the SCA, blah, blah, corporate, yada, yada, thingamabob. For those of you who have children, this is a adult show in the terms of I will cuss and say fuck a lot. So there you got it. And if you don't wish to hear to read the disclaimer that's going to be scrolling through, basically it means it's our opinion, and if you don't like it, you don't have to listen. Cormac, did you have anything to add to that before we get started?
No, other than that, I don't intend to curse all that often, but given the subject matter that we're talking about, it does feel rather inevitable at times.
Right. So, all right. So let's go ahead and get this started. So, yeah. So I leave for a couple of months because I'm dealing with life and the professor and all of that. And then all of a sudden, shit happens. And in this case, we're talking about the Range Peerage and how it went from we're going to do this to here's some options to we don't like these options to some sort of survey. I mean, the Scallion retired and they came back.
Yeah, this brought them back. And
that's how fucked up this is.
With a vengeance, I might add. Shout out to the anonymous folks at the Scallion. Y'all are doing a yeoman's job, and we love you for it.
Perfect. So let's talk about let's begin at the beginning with their most recent timeline. And I'm going to go ahead and let Cormac talk about this because he's been intimately involved with this whole process. I have been peripherally involved in the sense that I've seen it go through my feed and I've seen, the postings and whatnot. But because I've been dealing with the real world, I haven't been as tuned into this as, say, the EK Rapier Crown, which I was right there and reporting as it happened. So take it away, Cormac. Tell us what is going on.
Sure. So to rewind back quite a bit, the board established an additional peerage committee back in, I think, 2017, a long while ago. And that team was headed up by a gentleman by the name of Ryan McWhite, who's both an archer, the current Archer General of the East, I believe, as well as a senior herald. And he and his team worked for years putting together a proposal. Fast forward to 2024, when it was finally approved by the board of directors in June, after first being rejected by the board in April, which appears to be a tradition among the board to deny and then approve a peerage order. Same thing happened with the Order of Defense.
Oh, and it
back
looks
in
like Ryan is actually here. So, hi, Ryan.
There you go.
Mhm.
My brother. So anyway, the board finally approved the creation of the order, and rather than having it be an omnibus peerage order, which initially was planned to be,
Don't even get me started on that shit.
it instead was approved as a ranged martial peerage. So that is target archery, thrown weapons, combat archery, siege engineering, and mounted archery. That is equestrian archery only, not other equestrian activities. The board then directed Laurel Sovereign at Arms to create a name, a piece of armory, and a regalia item that can be used for this new order. The heralds all got together. We pulled in all of our different ideas for what we had that would pass and that would be appropriate for this new order. And I've written several articles on this that you can see at my website, poorhouse.com. That's POORE-house.com. But we finally came up with a name, the Order of Esperance, which means hope in French, a badge, which is this rather complex design. If I had actually thought about it, I could have popped it up on the screen here. And then an ermine garter regalia. There's a dash between poor and house.
Oh, well.
Anyway, good job being proactive. Anyhow, so we put this together and we brought it to the board. And by we, I mean Laurel brought it to the board. But in the meantime, because other things were happening, including the Rapier Crown tournament discussion, that ate up the entirety of the July meeting, and so it didn't get brought there. On board, or upon the advice and consent of the board, the heralds went out into the world in July and August. We did 2 meetings at Penzic, and we did 2 Zoom calls that were available worldwide to sell the new order, name, badge, and regalia, as was our mandate. Come to the October meeting, and the board said, wow, this looks fantastic. Where are the other options? And we said, what other options? And they said, the other options that we asked for. And we had never been asked for any other options. So the heralds got back together, and we put together our notes to show that we had done our work. The discussion on whether they wanted other viable options was not entirely clear. We thought that if we showed our work and we showed the options that we had rejected, that they would understand where we were coming from, and then they would understand why we chose the items that we did. So we presented through Laurel all of the other options, and it was an annotated list. Lovely cup. An annotated list of the various names, badges, and pieces of regalia that we had come up with. And the board apparently took that as, well, I guess we can use these. The board then created a survey that went out a couple weeks ago. Initially, the release did not have the name. It did not have the badge that we had created, but it did have an item of regalia. It instead had 3 names: the Order of the Banderole, the Order of the Leopard, and the Order of the Mark, and then 5 badges and 4 items of regalia, many of which we had already identified as problematic.
I never thought the leopards would eat my face.
Just so. When the poll was first released, the board of directors had blamed the heralds for not having, or for not putting the Order of Esperance onto the list. They said that we had found conflicts. The herald said, excuse me, we didn't actually find any conflicts on that. We found something that we decided was not a conflict. The board then pulled the poll, re-released it, with this time with the badge, but not with the name, and said that there was a conflict that the heralds had recognized already, even if they said that it wasn't a problem. And then when the heralds released a rather long and widely signed co-letter or an open letter to the board of directors, the board finally released a document, which I'm thinking we're going to look at fairly recently, a joint announcement between the board and the president of the society, nominally also with Brigitte Laurel's sign-on off of it, but we can get into that later, that basically said the reason Esperance was not included was because there was a name of a knighthood, an order of chivalry in Bourbon that had the name Esperance, and so the board didn't want to go that route. So that in a nutshell is what's been happening. The poll ends tonight at midnight Eastern Standard Time. If you have not voted in the poll, you should absolutely vote in the poll. The Scallion has also released an unofficial poll that includes the name Esperance and allows you to leave comments, whereas the board poll did not. So absolutely encourage you to vote in both. But the actual board one is more important and can be found at sca.org.
Okay, and I just put in the comments for everybody the URL to the joint statement from the board of directors and the society president. Bless his heart. Bless all of their hearts, really. And I am, oh, it's okay, Brianne. We still love you. Brianne basically is, so she posted that on Facebook. So you know, it's okay. We still love you. Joint, right? Somebody was smoking a bowl. Anyway, all right. So let's talk about. So here we are. I found out. I got caught up with Cormac here on the situation about a week ago. In fact, it was like the evening, right about a few hours before this joint statement came out. Was when we got together on Zoom and had a kind of like a powwow. A meeting of the minds to determine what we wanted to talk about in today's podcast, determine when we were going to have today's podcast, and what we were going to discuss. And of course, that went out the window as soon as whatever the hell this was came out. So, yeah, that was a whole lot of word salad that didn't make a lot of sense to me, other than and I want to preface this by saying, yes, I'm the virtual herald, and I have been and I am considered a herald. I'm a member of the Caid College of Heralds. I was in a past life the Corona or voice herald for the Kingdom of Atenveld. I'm not much of a book or a name herald, because that means I have to like do research, and I don't even do research for my embroidery, so I'm not going to do research for heraldry. So while I am a herald in the sense that, you know, I'm loud and I make noise and I tell people things, I don't know if I would say that I'm a traditional herald in the sense that, you know, So I wanted to get Cormac's understanding of the situation, because he's been involved with this since the beginning. Like he said, back in 2017, when this was first even thought of, and the first committee and all of that. So,
well, to be clear, I was not on the committee at the time.
Okay, sorry.
I was, however, Wreath King of Arms, and I had assumed back in the day that we were going to be able to bring that forward, and I would be actually working on behalf of the College of Arms officially as Wreath, putting the badge together. Then, of course, it was delayed for 8 years at this point.
Because nothing can ever be done in a timetable that remotely resembles reality.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, so that's kind of the nexus of all of what's been going on up until now. And one of the goals that we wrote down, and keep in mind, when we put together this outline, this was before the joint statement. One of the things that we wanted to talk about was the systematic failure of communication by the boards.
Sure.
By the board. This is only the latest example of how the board tends to take something and screw the pooch, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
the EK crown, the EK rapier crown is one situation where the then director Bainter thought that if he pretended that his email didn't work, it would go away. He was wrong.
Pug actually is still a board member until April.
I thought he was still, okay. Well, whatever. In any case, he thought that by pretending that his email didn't work, that the whole rapier thing was going to go away. Now, I will mention that Mr. Bainter in the real world is a C-suite IT person, so forgive me if I find his statements about his email not working a little sus.
Well, it's just another in a long pattern of board members blaming their volunteers for their own failures, to be perfectly honest, rather than taking his own responsibility for not responding for 6 weeks or looking into it when he didn't receive an email in 1 week, especially during the the thing of which he was the ombudsman. He instead blamed IT.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, come on. This isn't 2024, dude. Like, maybe that would have flown like in like the late like the early aughts when email was not as nebulous. And in fact, we've actually gone beyond email. Email is actually considered old-fashioned nowadays. The young kids nowadays, they're all about the textings and the WhatsApps and the TikTokers and Facebook is actually considered, the realm of the poor elder millennial and Gen Xer. Damn kids, get off my lawn.
So how about we look at this letter?
All right.
We can go through it because it really gets to the heart of the systemic failure of communications that we're talking about.
All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so can y'all? Okay, so add to stage.
There we go.
So there it is. Here's the beginning of that statement. I will go ahead and read it, and then Cormac, I'll read it like the paragraph, and then we'll talk about it. So sure. There has been a greater emphasis on transparency in the SCA. The board of directors, president of the SCA, and Society Herald would like to address the membership on the creation of the range peerage, the process so far, insight on the decisions, and what happens next. First and foremost, it is important for all of us to see the range peerage created as quickly as possible. Okay,
now, there. On that, I will say that the Heralds certainly want to see the range peerage created as quickly as possible. The board, I think it's up to individual members. I don't know about the board as a whole, but the Heralds certainly agree with that.
Okay, so it says here that the screen, I see you guys, yeah, so it looks like
the screen. Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm just going to stop and I'm just going to keep reading. Y'all got the link. Y'all can read along. All right. The Society has been working on implementation since June of 2024. Nice. To create a ranged peerage, which stemmed from a proposed fifth peerage that had been advocated by a group of members for over a decade. That's more like it.
Yep.
To help the membership better understand how things work on the society level, here's a breakdown of the people involved in the process.
We can skip the introduction of the people involved, I think.
Board of directors, president of the SCA, who at the time was John Fulton and is now Bao Pham. Society Herald, who God knows how many Society Heralds have been around since this all BS started.
About 4.
Okay, so and then the latest, and then of course the latest Society Herald is this wonderful gentle. Is it? I don't know what the pronouns are. If they're they. Or,
she. Yeah. Her name is Birgitta. She lives in Finland. Modernly Uni Leono. I believe I'm pronouncing her name correctly.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's the boss.
She's the current Society Herald. And then so we're going to go ahead and go to the next section here. The initial plan after the approval of the range peerage in June by the board of directors, in consultation with the corporate officers, president, VP corporate ops, Society Seneschal, i.e. John Fulton, the one gal that they have as an employee, I forget her name, Society Seneschal, who at the time was Liz Schreier and is now Stacy something or other, I forget, was to follow a similar path to the creation of the Order of Defense by having multiple options to choose from.
This isn't...
Let me finish the paragraph.
Sure.
This is a large, primarily volunteer organization, and sometimes miscommunications occurred. It did in this case.
So this is an interesting claim. When the Order of Defense was being discussed, I was a member of a group called the Additional Peerage Review Committee, who took the proposal that was created and then approved by the Board of Directors and reviewed it. I believe by the time it got to us, there was only one option for name, badge, and regalia. I know that the committee had put together a number of options, and the board had made their decision on what one it was going to be before sending it to the review committee. So by the time we were to polling, by the time we were at the point that we're at now, there was only one badge, one name, and one piece of regalia. So the claim that it was going to follow the similar path to the Order of Defense is complete non sequitur to what they're actually saying they wanted. All
right. Next paragraph. The Board of Directors were waiting for multiple options. The Society Herald worked with the understanding that the board was looking for one proposal. The president of the SCA pushed to involve the membership in the decisions with more open communication during this process. Everyone wanted to move the process forward as quickly as possible and still do.
What can I say? The Board of Directors saying that they wanted multiple options does not match up with any of the documentation, any of the documents or statements that they provided prior to the October board meeting.
And I would also like, sorry. I would also like to add the statement of the president of the SCA. Which one? There's been two. There was John Beare. There was
at this point it's Bao. Very clearly.
Yes, but the president of the SCA at the time that this was happening was still John, I believe.
No, by the time June rolled around, I believe it was Bao. He was stepping into the role.
Okay. It's like I said, my timing may be totally off because again,
And part of the issue may well have been that both Brigitte and Bao were sort of new into their roles. Brigitte had been in for a little bit. Bao was stepping into some very large shoes. I don't know how big the shoes John Fulton actually wears, but the role that he held for almost a decade was very large shoes to fill. And so part of it may well have been miscommunication by the president, but we're talking about the board right now.
Okay. The College of Arms initially drafted a single proposal for the name, badge, and regalia. At the same time, the president pushed for communication with the membership so that they could present multiple options, get feedback, and generate excitement over the new peerage. The College of Arms announced Esperance as the singular proposal without sufficient prior consultation with the board of directors in August. This then created mixed messaging to the membership through public announcements and online meetings about whether or not there was a singular proposal or if there would be multiple proposals.
So we were given instructions to work with the community to make sure that the options that we had were what they wanted. And so certainly we did do, as is described, that you wanted to involve the membership with the decisions, more open communication during the process. We did that. There are several members of the work group that were also members of the Omnibus Peerage Facebook group, including Ryan, who was involved in the process from the beginning, as well as Nicola, who is another herald and archer and a member of the committee. And both of them, as well as myself and a couple of other members, were constantly reaching out. When the board decided that they weren't going to go with the equestrian option for this new peerage, we reached out and asked whether the name that was the working name that everybody wanted, Valiance, was still something that the community wanted if the equestrian community was not involved. There was a poll run, and it was found that Valiance was not acceptable if the equestrians weren't being brought along. So we took that feedback and we worked with it. We took other suggestions from the community and ran them through the conflict checking process and documentation process. And most of them were found either undocumentable or unregisterable or otherwise not a good fit for what we were told we were looking for. So the community was sorry, Nika, not Nicola. Says Ryan. Thank you very much, Ryan. So we did our job, and we did what the president was looking for, and that's where we are.
Okay, so in the next paragraph, the College of Arms used their expertise to make a singular proposal and promoted it to bring awareness to this being the most viable path forward for the peerage. The board of directors attempted to make it clear in society announcements and via internal communication that the expectation was to present multiple options.
I need to jump. Sorry, I need to cut this paragraph in half because that claim is a blatant, documentable lie. Not even gonna pussyfoot around here. This is a lie, and every public statement prior to the October meeting was singular: a name, a badge, a piece of armory, a set of insignia. There, at no point in the board of directors communications, public or as far as I can tell, private, prior to the October board meeting, did they make it at all clear that they wanted one item, singular.
For shame, the board lying? Oh no!
Crazy, right?
I have no idea what you're talking about. All right.
Sorry, go on.
Multiple options are important to the board of directors and the corporate officers because they believe the membership deserves to be involved and have a say in a new peerage. This was further emphasized in the October after the board meeting. Afterwards, several options were submitted to the College of Heralds, and the members were given an opportunity to send in suggestions.
To be fair, the membership had been given the opportunity to send in suggestions before, and we received them and we processed them. So this wasn't a novel thing that the board was giving the membership access to.
It's almost like you guys were, I don't know, treating the board as a client.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. And last I checked, the client isn't going to be polling everybody in their barony about what their name and device should be. Just saying.
Crazy, right? All right.
At the most recent quarterly meeting in January 2025, the Society Herald provided the board of directors with the final list of possible options. All the options in the polling came off from this list. And I'm going to stop here and say that's a line of shit and I'll let Cormac explain that one in a second. Prior to the release of the official poll, upon consultation with the Society Herald, several name options were removed and only 4 were found registerable. The proposed name developed by the College of Arms was then removed by the board of directors during a special meeting before releasing the poll. Although the College of Heralds advised that Esperance is a registrable name, the board of directors objected to having the peerage order sharing the same name as a historical order of chivalry.
And there they finally admit it. Why they don't want the Range peerage to have a chivalry.
They said the quiet part out loud, kids.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! I haven't seen this much open and honest to transparency since ever.
So let's talk about this. January 2025, Uni presents the list, which has not been made public because it was a report to the board. But
because heaven forbid the board actually share anything that, because it's all HR sensitive.
Just so. But what is public are the items that appear on Oscar, the online system of commentary and response, which every single submission in the College of Arms goes through. So we first sent through the Esperance set. We sent through other items, including several of the names and armory that were on this list. There was one item that has not yet gone through, or at least as far as I last checked, had not appeared on Oscar at all, and that is the Erminois baldric. And so I don't know why it's on there. It was an item that was removed from our list because we didn't want shared regalia with another order. If you're a member of the Order of Mastery of Arms, which is part of the Order of Chivalry, you have a white baldric.
Ooh, that's a... yeah, sorry.
Yeah, if you join both orders, then you have to wear, like, I guess, crossed baldricks, or you have to choose which baldric that you want to wear. We didn't feel that this was appropriate. The group had looked to, for lack of a better term, inventory slots for regalia. So you have, the cap of maintenance, the chain, the belt, the baldric, the collar.
Let's talk about the hood.
Yes. One item that had been suggested and rather quickly rejected for reasons which will very quickly become apparent is a hood. This being a ranged peerage, a lot of archers and thrown weapons folks, they would wear hoods. And naturally, the regalia for armored for martial peerages being white, the white collar, the white belt, the white baldric, this would be a white hood. It's a terrible idea. You should not do that.
Oh my God. I saw that on Facebook and I'm like, you're shitting me. Yes, Brianne, someone did suggest a friggin' white hood. I don't know who. I'm not sure, if this went anywhere past even Oscar, but
not just one person. Several people, in fact, had suggested white hoods, and as soon as it was pointed out, that's not a good look. Imagine the entire order processing in, maybe with torches, like that. This is why it's not a good thing.
Perhaps of the citronella tiki variety.
Absolutely. And every time that I saw it brought up, everyone immediately recognized it was a bad idea. So this is less, what were the heralds thinking, or what is the populace thinking?
No. This was some dumbass being like, hey, what about white hoods? And everybody's going, are you mental?
But anyhow, so the Ermenwald baldric hasn't gone through the commentary process. No one has done a formal analysis on whether it would conflict with anything, whether it's appropriate. It has not gone through Oscar. Why is it on this poll?
I have to agree with this statement right here. I just had to share it. If I had a beverage, well, I do, but I'm all right. Continue. Sorry.
All right.
All right.
Let's see. The proposed name developed by the College of Arms was removed by the board of directors during a special meeting before releasing the poll.
Yes.
Conflicts with the historical order of chivalry. So when the work group was going out and selling Esperance, we had mentioned that it is a period order name. It was the Duke of Bourbon, Charles the Bold, I believe. Anyway, one of
the Chuckies. There's so many.
A bold Duke of Bourbon created an order of chivalry, an order of knighthood within his domain that was called the Order of Our Lady of the Thistle, also known as the Order of Bourbon, and colloquially referred to, at least sometimes, as the Order of Esperance, because that was their motto, and the name, or the word Esperance, appeared in a piece of regalia that they wore. So we found this bit. We said, hey, look, this isn't just a random French name. We'll get to that, Ducky, I promise.
Anyway, I'm making commentary as you talk.
No, it's all good. So not only this, but the Percys of Northumberland used Esperance as their motto and their war cry, and their herald was named Esperance. So we were demonstrating this isn't just some random name that we picked. This is actually an important piece. This is core to the understanding of peerage and chivalry within the Middle Ages. And the only thing that the board took from that, apparently, was there was a group of knights called Esperance. We can't have this ranged martial peerage associated with the chivalry. So we were
because heavens to Betsy, we can't have ranged people thinking that they're all high and muckety muck. No.
Right. Never mind that the order never made it out of Bourbon. There were only ever 29 members, and it did not last after he died. So like this is very much a window of time.
Unlike the Order of the Leopard, which is one of the options. Let's talk about that one.
The Order of the Leopard. There are a number of different military orders, including one that is not currently open. It closed, I believe, in 2002 in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And there's also
wonderful, that wonderful bastion of democracy.
Right. And then there's another one in Kazakhstan. Now, either of these alone would be enough, most likely, to return this name for presumption. There's different between conflict and presumption. Conflict is within the SCA, presumption is without. If the Order of Esperance, the alternate name for the Order of Our Lady of the Thistle, was important enough to protect and reject this name, then certainly modern military orders would also be not only important enough to protect from presumption, but also, do we really want our new ranged martial peerage to be a name that is used in Kazakhstan and the Democratic Republic of Congo?
And which has historical members like Kim Jong-un.
Yes, indeed.
We really, I mean, never mind what's going on in the real world. But dude, what I find hilarious about this is back in the COVID times when the first fuck around and find out happened, people were talking about, well, I don't want to inject politics in the SCA. I want to play and have a vacation and not have to worry about the real world. Really? Really?
Yeah, it's odd like that.
Uh-huh.
So anyhow, yeah, that was a choice that they made.
Yeah, so that was a choice that was made. So that let us continue with because we're still not done. We're still got like 3 or 5 or 6, 7 or 8 paragraphs left.
Indeed, roll on.
All right, so it was a major decision, one that was discussed at length. The board of directors is not a monolith. Together, they are the board of directors, but they are still individuals from different backgrounds and experiences debating and discussing these major decisions in consultation with corporate or society officers. Collectively, the board of directors makes the final decision. That is how the options provided by the College of Heralds we ended up with the final 3 options for the name of the new peerage and the options for the badge and insignia of the new order.
So there's some interesting claims here.
Well, before you get started, I saw a comment on the Facebook post that had this announcement, and I thought it was brilliant. They basically said, "Oh, look, I just fixed it. I just fixed this announcement for you." Collectively, the board of directors makes the final decision.
Mm-hmm. And the idea that these major decisions are made in consultation with the corporate or society officers, that's an interesting claim, because if this was held at a decision was made during a conference call, we don't know who was at the conference call. And I would be willing to bet dollars to donuts that Brigitte was not involved on that call at all. And while we're at it, you might have noticed in this letter that the whoever wrote this, and I'm guessing it's at least partially ChatGPT, keeps saying the College of Heralds. If Uni was actually involved in writing this letter, she would have pointed out that the term College of Heralds is not appropriate for what's going on. Very quickly, the College of Arms is the society level grouping of heralds. It includes the sovereigns of arms, the principal heralds of each kingdom, the society level officers, including Clarion, Palimpsest, Morcelus, and a number of other ones. And then each kingdom has a College of Heralds. So that's all of the heralds within their own kingdom. They all report up the structure to the College of Arms.
So I would also like to point out that this tracks because the supermajority of the board has always been royal peers, and if it doesn't have it, and that tracks. I just wanted to point that out.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the board of directors are a number of individuals, and we have seen them disagree quite a bit. Apparently, this decision, at least as it's informally been talked about, was a 4-3 split over whether to include the Order of Esperance within this listing.
And I would love to know who were the 4 that poo-pooed it. I
think
wonder if they have KSCA after their initials.
I would also very much like to know, not to speculate on what member of each order they might be, but simply just to know who felt that the work of the heralds was unimportant enough that this decision needed to be made.
Ooh, solid. All right, so next paragraph. The society does not create new peerages often, and multiple challenges were created through miscommunication and misalignment of expectations. The SCA moves slowly due to processes, rules, and competing priorities. Decisions are generally made by the directors at quarterly meetings. These occur in January, April, July, and October, or on the monthly conference call. In rare exceptions, there are special or emergency meetings in between that time. The officers handle the day-to-day operations and prepare items for the board meetings. There is a special meeting scheduled to discuss the results of the current poll to expedite the process. The poll has had a fantastic response rate so far, and the board of directors eagerly awaits the results to review and come to a decision as soon as possible.
Not that they're going to release any of the data. They'll only most likely give summaries, and the summaries will agree with whatever they wanted.
And I also, and the thing that I find exasperating is, how is this information about a polling regarding arranged peerage, how is this protected data? We're not talking about an individual. We're not talking about, somebody's personal, something that could potentially affect someone's, reputation or subject the society to some sort of legal action. It's the rules regarding or naming an order in a game that we play. What's with the cloak and dagger shit, guys? Why can't you just be open and honest and say and share this data? There is no reason for them not to share this information. None.
Well, if they do include member number, which you are mostly required to include. Sorry, my boss is trying to call me. Not right now. I'm online. An individual's own choice and advice to the board does not necessarily need to be revealed to everybody. No one needs to know that I personally prefer the order of the banderole or the order of the leopard or the order of the mark.
That's correct. But the results of the data, the raw data information of the percentages, we didn't even get that for the polling for East Kingdom, for that the board forced the East Kingdom to take and made them say, okay, if we even want to consider a rapier crown, we have to have at least 20% of the East Kingdom membership answer this polling in order for it to be valid.
Right.
And they purposely, I believe, gave that very high percentage rate, hoping and praying that the East Kingdom couldn't put together enough paid members to make that quota. You were wrong.
Mm-hmm. And good on the East Kingdom for it.
Mm-hmm.
But we should probably get back to the letter.
Okay, sorry. Again, pattern of systematic failure here. Do we not see this? All right, so it has been less than a year since the new peerage was announced, but this process is in its final stages. We are in the cusp of having a new peerage. The society has been moving as quickly as it could to create a new peerage for the ranged community. The board, corporate, and the Laurel Sovereign are all committed to reviewing the entire process once the new peerage is in place and documenting key learnings and decision points for the future. What a load of shit.
Not to get too inside baseball on this, but the Heralds have gotten together and are currently working on a document to send to the board of directors on the learnings about miscommunication and processing in the future.
Is that even a thing? Key learnings? That doesn't sound like a valid term to me.
It is. It's a very corporate term, but
okay. I work for the man, but I'm not high up I'm not. Nor do I. I am an individual contributor at my place of employment, and there I shall remain. Yep. I have no interest in hurting cats. I mean, managing people.
All right.
All
Home
right.
stretch.
So the final, so there's a couple. Jesus Christ, how long is this fucking thing? Okay. So this next paragraph is pretty effing long. Okay. The emphasis here is that the SCA is full of volunteers or individuals who are trying to do the best that they can. This was a major project. Mistakes and misunderstandings occurred, and as an organization, we need to move forward. It has taken the SCA 8 months to get to the point of polling on these options, a major factor weighing on the deliberations of the board and corporate officers. If these options were found to be unacceptable, we would have to spend significant time accepting new options from the College of Heralds. Those options would have to go through the heraldic process. We would then need to poll on those options, and then we would need to have a decision on the polled items for the range peerage. Then we have some corporate processes to work through before the new peerage can officially be rolled out. All of that takes time, and we do not want to reset or further delay the process. In other words, suck it up, Buttercup. See?
So a few things.
I just narrowed it down to that.
Few things on this. First off, you're noticing all of the passive voice. Mistakes were made. Yeah, mistakes and understandings occur, as opposed to the board made mistakes and did not appropriately communicate either to the membership or to the heralds. When they feel that the heralds are a problem, they'll name us and they'll call us out and they'll throw us under the bus. But when anything indicates that it might be a board problem, mistakes were made and we need to move on. Secondly, it's taken the SCA 8 months to get to the point of polling on these options.
That is a line of shit. It's been longer than 8 months, my friends. When did this all begin? 2017?
Mm-hmm. And according to Ryan in the comments, the first proposal was given to the board in 2019.
So this has not been an 8-month process.
No,
this
but
this has taken decades.
Yep.
And they're just being pedantic at this point.
But if we want to measure from when the board approved the proposal and tasked the heralds to come up with a name and armory, we were done with that by July. And if they weren't farting around with the East Kingdom rapier crown, they could have heard it and then put it out on a poll. But instead, they decided that they were going to force the issue, find different names because they didn't want Esperance. They didn't want the work that we had done. And they instead delayed it even more. So the whole 8 months thing, we could have gotten that done in 2.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Once again, I just need to, I just feel the need to share this again. Cursing will happen and has been happening. And also, just in case for those of you who are new to the show, this is our opinion, and if you don't like it, don't listen.
Yep.
Anyway, continue. Did you have anything else before we move on to the next paragraph of this BS?
No, just keep listening for that passive voice. Wait for the board to take any sort of responsibility for their own actions, given that they are the final arbiter of this.
Yeah, don't hold your breath because you're going to fucking die. The SCA is committed to moving forward with the proposals as presented. That is primarily why there is not a none of the above option on the poll. The SCA does not want to delay the creation of arranged peerage. Liars. Though we all serve the society in these roles, we are part of the SCA as well. And we all want to see our friends receive their well-deserved recognition.
It's an interesting point to note that the board of directors are part of the SCA. They are, in fact, individual members of the SCA. And I feel that anyone who's in a kingdom with a member of the board should absolutely tell them to their face how they feel about how this thing has been handled. Because they're absolutely right. The board is not a monolith, and the board is not a faceless entity. And they will all have to face the consequences of their actions once they step down from the board, and perhaps even before.
Which is a topic of conversation once we get through this bullshit. Anyway, all right. We would like to thank the College of Arms for working through this process to come up with worthy options that any member of the peerage should be proud to be associated with. Though there have been some missteps in the process, at this time, we will move forward and put the range community first by making a decision on the new peerage using the options as presented to the membership. We hope this statement provides some clarity on the situation and the process. The poll is currently open, closing on 7 March 2025. During that time, we would encourage the membership to make their opinions known at sca-comments@sca.org or by participation in the poll.
And as we all know, writing to SCA comments at sca.org will absolutely...
Black hole sun,
It will
won't you
absolutely...
come?
It will absolutely get a response.
The rain. Sorry.
It'll absolutely get a response from the executive assistant to the board, Leslie Luther Fulton.
Who I'm of the belief that she should probably retire just like her husband. Oh, did I say that out loud? Yes, I did. I think that that if the board and corporate officers are truly trying to show themselves to be transparent, they would hire an executive assistant that is not associated with the ancient regime.
So, very quickly on Leslie. She, I believe, was put into her position by her husband, who was at the time chairman of the board. And so it made sense to have her come in, help out. And she did, from what I can tell, a fairly decent job of supporting the board for that. When John became president, she should have stepped down as executive assistant due to conflict of interest. Because at that point, she was the mouthpiece and the communications liaison for the board, who was her husband's boss. But she didn't. And she stuck around for the 8 years that John was president. Why is she still there?
Why? And I also would like to note that she is also actually one of the 3 employees of the SCA Inc. The other 2 being Bao, the president, and the corporate SVP, whose name escapes me.
Louise,
yes. That post was formerly held by Renee Signorati, who finally decided to retire. And, she did a great job for the 25 or some odd years that she did the job. And Louise so far has been nothing but, I don't have any complaints about her, because she stays in her lane, which, quite frankly, I wish the board would too, or at least pick a frickin' lane and stay in it.
Yeah. If I had my druthers, I would be able to convince the board of directors to stick to the business operations of the SCA, which is what they were always supposed to do. Keep the insurance going, keep the lights on, and leave game side work to the Crown and to the society level officers. If this were handled appropriately, yes, Ryan says, Louise is a gem and shall not be disparaged.
I'm not disparaging her. Yeah. I'm just pointing out the conflict of interest and the fact that, that my opinion is that she should have stepped down a while ago.
She being Leslie, not Louise.
Yeah, not Louise.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Here, I'll even post it on there. Louise, Leslie, they. Okay. We love Louise. Yes, we do. We're talking about the lady who decided to post on Facebook how disparaging comment, and she forgot about the whole, hey, guess what? The internet is actually pretty fast now. Huh?
And it never forgets. But yes, in my personal opinion, as they call out, the officers are involved in the day-to-day operations. The handling of this, once the board of directors approved that a new peerage order was going to be created, it should have been handed off to Bao, who would work with Uni and with any other officers, probably the Society Earl Marshal, since it's a martial activity, to come up with and farm out all of the names and regalia that were going to be done. Had that been handled by the officers and the decision been made with a singular submitter or possibly dual submitters with president and marshal working together, we could have worked as the heralds. We could have worked directly with them rather than having to wait for public communications that did not say what the board said they said, and have this 8-month process before we got to this point.
Right. So, what can we do? Because obviously, we have tried. There have been many. This particular action is just the latest in a series of actions, train wrecks, fumbles, PR crises that the board has created for themselves because they have failed to read the room.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, by handling these issues in the way that they are making it pretty easy for people to make different choices when they want to, about where they want to spend their free time. Now, I say this, and I'm still here. That's because I'm vested in the SCA. I've been doing this since I was 18.
Yep. Since I was 20.
Last year was my 25th anniversary in the society.
Tough.
Yes, I know. I feel old. Damn kids, get off my lawn. Anyway.
So ultimately, what can we do is your question, right?
Yes. What can we do?
So there are a number of things that can be done in the interim, but it needs to be called out immediately. The board selects their own membership. Mm-hmm. And so until that changes, the same ideas that have been used by prior boards are only going to be reinforced by the new board, because it used to be a unanimous vote to get someone in. Now it is unanimous -1. So it's still going to be 6 out of 7 supporting the candidate coming in.
Whoopee!
Right. Anyone can nominate themselves to the board, but the board is not necessarily beholden to pick from the list when they add new members. Case in point, when Gigi Colson stepped down early from her position on the board, instead of pulling from the list, they pulled in a previous board member, Aaron Rusty Lloyd, who also resigned before the end of the partial term that he had stepped up to fulfill.
And that's a whole other pack of bananas.
Right. So what can we do now? So first off, write to the board. I keep getting told they look at their messages, and certainly some messages have gotten through, and they do respond to it from time to time if it gets through the mesh that Leslie has pulled up. But also talk to the board. Go to board meetings, sit in on the Zoom meetings, send messages that other people can see when they pop up, but also talk to them in person. If there's one in your kingdom, talk to them. If there's a new member coming in, talk to that person before the rest of the board can fill their head with how the board is supposed to work. Because if they have any sort of idea how the board should be governed coming in, they might be able to hold on to that and avoid whatever happens to a board member that turns them into
the Borg.
The board. Other than that, there are some really fun things that can be done. If a crown were to want to send a message to the board that they need to stay out of gameside politics, they do have the option, and I'm just putting this out there, to issue a banishment from the royal presence. Banishments at higher levels have board oversight, and the board would certainly overturn that sort of decision for an exile from the realm or a TRP, but crown banishments from the royal presence have no board oversight. And 19 out of 20 kingdoms isn't going to affect any particular board member. But it is read into court, it is published in the kingdom newsletter, and the board member is notified in writing that they have been banished from the royal presence. And if a majority of them, majority of crowns that is, issue such a banishment, that would send a message that a majority of the crowns are dissatisfied with the board. According to Corpora and the rest of the governing documents, a board member may be impeached by a majority signature of crowns, of kingdom seneschals, signature of 3 board members, or a signature of 1,000 paid members. Now, that's not actually going to do much because the board decides whether a board member needs to be removed once they've been impeached, but it would certainly send a message of dissatisfaction. So if what you're looking for is to let the board know that you are incredibly unhappy, then talk to your crowns about possible banishment from the royal presence, talk to them about putting together a petition, and talk to the rest of your friends and see if you can't get 1,000 of us all together, because I guarantee you, we can probably find 1,000 paid members to say, hey, knock this off.
And I would also like to stress, because the board is an ancient regime, they specifically make this difficult because they do not accept online petitions. It has to be wet signature, and they do not accept they only just recently accepted email as a formal communication. This was probably within the last 10 years or so. So the board itself has limited what we as the membership, the people that are paying $65 a year for whatever, for that, for the privilege of being told that, collectively the board is the one that makes the decision. Right. I wanted to point out a specific thing that we discussed when we had our conversation last week, and that is the shit sandwich theory. Yes. I think that the shit sandwich theory is something that we need to make public, and maybe share this information personally with the current board of directors and incoming directors. Cormac, what is the shit sandwich theory?
So this theory states that when you are in a position of power, say the crown or an officer, either at the kingdom, society level, every decision that you make is part of a shit sandwich. The decisions that you make and the impact that they have on people will accumulate. And while you're in the position of power, largely it's not going to affect you. But once you step down, whatever you've made in that shit sandwich, you are going to have to eat. So if you are a crown that makes an incredibly unpopular decision at the end of your 6 months, you're just a person again. And anyone and everyone who is impacted by that is going to shun you, is probably going to yell at you, is otherwise going to make your presence in their circle uncomfortable. The board of directors, by and large, has avoided that because the decisions are made by the monolith,
the board.
by the board.
The board is considered I find it ironic that they say that they're not a monolith when they're actually act like one. Mm-hmm. They are a monolith. So that's another blatant lie in that statement. The board is a monolith. They treat themselves as a monolith. They treat themselves as an entity that is above it all, the be all and end all. Right. And to put that down in writing that they're not is a load of shit.
Oh, individual members do make their own decisions and they do disagree. The problem is that the documentation of that disagreement by and large is absent. When there's a formal vote, that vote should and usually does appear in the board minutes. But any discussion, any objection to the use of a name that doesn't come up to a vote is not only entirely opaque, but it is also hidden, especially when it's in a conference call. There's no recording of that discussion like there is with a regular meeting that we see on YouTube. There's just, once they finally get it published, if they get it published, and sometimes, oops, we forgot a meeting. But unless there was a formal vote by the board during the conference call of whether to include Esperance, we will not know unless a board member talks out of turn which four said no. And that's a problem.
Yeah, because if you're going to put yourself out there as a board of director, I think I'm just going to post what Ducky just said here. Basically, they need to have if you become a member of the board of directors, have a fucking backbone.
Yeah.
If you become the crown, if you're doing all of this training and exercise, because let's face it, the crown is always going to be a physical contest, whether it's heavy, and right now it's 99% heavy. We're finally getting a rapier crown in May, and that's a whole other story of drama. But at the end of the day, it's a physical contest. If you're going to go through all of that training and have to achieve this rank, why are you retaining that level of responsibility and not using it to benefit not just yourself but the membership as a whole? Like, I'm not a peer. Never. I'm of the opinion that I will never be one. Your mileage may vary. It doesn't matter. I'm not a peer. I'm not looking to be a peer. I'm just looking for the truth and to shine that light and to say the quiet part out loud, which ultimately is what the board is doing in this announcement. If you can dig into it, if you can stay awake long enough to get to it.
Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to clarify, because it didn't come up in comments, but I want to make sure this is abundantly clear. When I talk about people facing the consequences of their actions, I want to make sure that it is abundantly clear that no one in the SCA should have death threats or doxing or any other of that kind of threat or aggression against them be done.
No,
absolutely no one.
We're not talking about canceling people, folks. We're talking about making social consequences, such as, oh, hey, yeah, weren't you the one that that didn't like Esperance and caused all this ruckus? Oh, that's nice, and then move on. We're not talking about like when Trimgate happened back in the day. Revealing people's addresses, names, phone numbers, places of employment. That is not what we are saying. And thank you, Cormac, for pointing that out. Yeah, what we are saying is that for too long, the members of the board of directors have been shielded from the consequences of their actions behind the whole theory of, well, it's the board and not me, Shep, Pug, whoever it is, whatever.
Just so.
And that has to change. It's been about an hour and a half or an hour, 10 minutes. Typically, I don't like to go much farther than that. But before we go, I do have one final thing that I do want to bring up and that I do want to shine a light to it. Corporate restructuring has been something that has been floating around for years. My understanding that it was attempted back in the 90s. There was this guy that was brought in and it was terrible, horrible. Oh my God, wailing and gnashing of teeth. I was in grade school in the 90s, so I have no idea. Maybe those folks that are listening who were around at that time can provide some context. And if you're interested in sharing that story, let me know. I would love to have you come on the podcast and explain that ancient history to us. Ever since then, it's been my understanding that any idea of restructuring, like totally restructuring the corporate, the corpora and making it so that it is more in tune with modern nonprofit organization and governance, has been poo-pooed by those people, by those in the board at best, and vehemently opposed, vitriolically even in some cases, at worst.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we do? How can we get ourselves out of this, quite frankly, hodgepodge archaic system that only serves a specific few people and doesn't really take into account the realities of the modern day? Because again, you can hope and pray and pretend all you want that you can leave modern politics at the door, that you can come into the SCA and go pay your site fee and be a Lord Heidi Muckety Muck of Schmoozerville. That's great if you have the privilege to do that. I myself can't take off my skin color. I can't take off my my femininity at the door. The fact that I'm a modern woman and not, chattel.
So what can we do? Currently, the only way to change the board governance or the structure of the SCA is to go through the board of directors. And by and large, that's a good thing. From an organizational standpoint, having not being able to change something from without is good. However, the board needs to be responsive to the wishes of their membership. And if the membership calls for a change into how the board is decided upon, for example, if we were to go to a very common board structure that has both elected members of the board and ex officio members, say the president, the treasurer, and then a rotating member of the society officer corps, and then say between 5 and 7 elected members of the board who are elected from among the membership, this, I think, would go a long way towards both having the board be more responsive and responsible to the membership, and also be more representational to who is in here. Without the board adopting such measures on their own, one could put together a petition, a number of petitions.
Have been done in the past.
As has been done in the past. And push board members every single time a new board member joins to sign on to this pledge to get things changed. And this is where social pressure comes into play. At some point in the 90s, there was a pretty clear demonstration of financial malfeasance. And that's when a lawsuit was created by members of the SCA against the board to sue for access to the financial records. It's going to be more difficult to get a change in the governance structure through the court system. As we saw recently from the Parker case that was ultimately thrown out of court, there was a push to restructure several aspects of the SCA and how leadership is chosen. And the court said, we have no jurisdiction over this. A private organization creates their own rules, and as long as there's no illegalities, they can do what they want. So really at this point, it is just about putting social pressure on individual board members to push for change.
And that's why I'm here. Now, couple final words before we let go. If you are interested in helping me out in my mission, I do have a link to my Buy Me a Coffee site. I currently am using what is the name of this? Is it
StreamYard?
StreamYard. I'm currently using StreamYard. Did you know that the advanced version of this is $35 a week?
That is way too much.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of a nest egg from previous tip jars, but I'm not able to hold on to a subscription of this type. So I'm probably going to have to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. So right now the best way to help me out is by throwing something in the tip jar, the Buy Me a Coffee. I also, I'm also looking into possibly selling some of my embroidery. I have a bunch of embroidery pieces that I've made that I just need to sell for maybe, $5-10 or whatever you think it's worth. And all of the funds will go towards paying for the virtual Herald. I'm still kind of in the process of figuring that out. And then finally, share this podcast. Share your experience. Use the hashtag SCA Reform Now. That's the hashtag I created way back when this all started. It's kind of picked up. It hasn't, but we need to make this so that they cannot just say, "Oh, nobody has told us anything."
Right.
Nobody has. They can no longer hide behind that. And I believe that as long as we can continue to put that pressure, that eventually we'll get some change. But I'm also thinking that, especially with the way the world is going right now, world events may supersede what the SCA is going on. I made a mention in the post reminding people of this podcast that part of the reason why I'm doing this and that Cormac's here is this is a way to distract us from what's going on in the other world, in the real world, which if you're a citizen of the United States, it's a bit rough.
A little bit.
just a skosh. And I personally feel helpless at being able to affect change in the modern world. So I cling to the Virtual Herald and I cling to the SCA because I feel that if I can make a change somewhere, I can make it here in my hobby. The one of the most important things in my life that I've been doing since I was 18 years old. And I know that a lot of you, Cormac, and all of you out there included, feel the same way. So I'm going to end this by saying thank you, Cormac, for taking the time to hang out with me, and I heart you, and I really appreciate you taking being my first.
Never forget your first.
You never forget your first.
Thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if anybody wants to find more information about me, you can find me on Cormac Mór on Facebook or at poorhouse.com. We can put the URL up again.
Okay, one moment. Right there.
Thank you.
With the dash this time.
Yes, with the dash. It's very important.
And then for those of you, so I like I said, I've created a YouTube channel now. So we have a YouTube channel. Actually, I've had it for a long time, but this is the first time I've actually used it. I need to change the profile picture. That was a lot of pounds ago. And I will continue on Facebook, and I will, and just, spread the knowledge, spread the word. The Washington Post of blessed memory, their motto has always been "Democracy dies in darkness." It's now quite ironic. And the best thing I can say is that if we don't shine the light, and if we don't make our opinions known and force that social change, then this is going to go away, because it is unsustainable. Yeah. It really is. So with that being said, thank you again for coming on to the Virtual Herald. The Herald has spoken. This is Jerusha Alaon, the Virtual Herald, and Cormac. Come on, say your name.
Cormac Mór.
There you go. Wishing you guys a good evening. I will have this out on the YouTubes, and I will talk to you guys next time. So until next time, stay tuned. Thanks.
Bye.